Sarah's best friends are me and her boyfriend Scott, hands down. She's got some friends from the museum she works at, but they don't hang out much, so I don't really know them. Yeah, it's pretty much just us three most of the time. We're the ones she vents to, makes plans with, and does all the fun stuff with. My mother never much watched TV. Well, except Shark Week. She never missed that. She had this fascination with sharks and always said she loved them, but watching a shark on TV was the only safe way to observe one. My mom used to tell me stories about how she traveled when she was younger. Yeah, she had this adventurous streak and loved exploring new places, just hopping around like a modern day vagabond. She'd talk about backpacking through Europe, hitting all the major cities and tourist destinations. She always had these wild tales of meeting interesting people, getting lost in foreign cities, and stumbling upon beautiful landscapes. She was much more worldly than your typical small town girl. My mom was a total cat person. She always had cats growing up, and she'd tell me stories about her favorite cats from when she was a kid. You'd think that our house would have been a feline paradise, but no, we never had any cats. My dad, on the other hand, was a dog person through and through. Somehow, he must have won the cat versus dog debate because our only childhood pets were dogs. Yeah, it's like he won some bet we don't know about, and suddenly, we're a dog family. I don't know. This one's a little embarrassing. After my mom died, I convinced myself her ghost was still in the house, watching over all of us. I used to talk to her when no one else was around. I was still a little kid at the time, and normally, I was smart enough not to believe in made-up things, but I had a really hard time coping with her death, so I just let myself believe it. It was my way of dealing with her loss. I remember sitting in a chair, clutching her blanket, and whispering about my day as if she was still there listening. It felt comfortable and made the house feel less empty. After my mom died, I convinced myself her ghost was still in the house, specifically in her bedroom. I was just a kid, and it still feels dumb thinking about it now. I'd sneak in there when no one else was around and talk to her. Tell her how school was going, vent about stuff. Sometimes I even asked for advice. And the weirdest part is, I really believed I could feel her there. I was certain of it. I guess kids deal with grief in ways like that. No, my mom never got to visit New Orleans. But I think she would have loved it. She was really into unique places, and New Orleans has plenty of those. Whenever I walk around the city, especially the French Quarter, I think about how much she would have enjoyed seeing all the sights and experiencing the culture. I really wish I could show her all around the city. The house I grew up in changed after my mom died from cancer. The whole process felt like it just dragged on forever. So from then on, my parents' bedroom turned into this grim reminder of everything we went through. What used to be a normal room, but with way too many throw pillows, became this weird, emotional minefield. Every day walked by, I was like, oh, hey, remember that time you sat here for hours with your mom, trying to act normally while secretly freaking out? Yeah, fun times. Toward the end, my mom was stuck in bed all the time. I couldn't even go in that room anymore without feeling like she was just laying there. It was like space got frozen in those final moments, making it impossible to see it as just a bedroom again. My mom didn't know much about comic books, but she knew I liked them, so every now and then she'd buy me one as a surprise. The thing is, though, she'd always pick out the weirdest, most random comics, like Heathcliff or The Muppets Go Medieval. It was this funny little dance I'd have to do, pretending to like them just enough to be polite, but not so much that she'd keep buying more. Now, my mother never played video games. That was not her thing. But board games? Oh, man, she was all about those. We had a closet full of them, and she would drag them out any chance she got, trying to wrangle the rest of us into playing. We'd all sit around the table, and she'd get this huge kick out of it. Once I got older, I realized we weren't playing any of these games right. Not a single one. What we thought were the rules? Pfft, totally made up. It turns out Monopoly isn't supposed to take 6 hours and end in a screaming match. Who would have thought? I only met Sophia's mom once. There was this one time when her parents picked her up and took her to some fancy restaurant. I only got to talk to her mom for a bit, but what stuck with me was, yeah, she just had this incredible fashion sense. She looked super stylish. Also, she got some pretty old school values. I could tell Sophia really got along with her. I never met Scott's mom. She passed away before I met him. Scott's dad is this hard-nosed, old-school type, while Scott himself is this fun, geeky guy who's into comic books and video games and Star Trek. I always assumed he got those traits from his mom, but I could be wrong. Sarah's mom passed away when she was pretty young. It's something we both share, losing our moms early. We don't talk about it much, but it's comforting to have someone who just gets it. Back when The Phantom Menace came out, my best friend and I took a trip to LA to see it early. He got advance tickets somehow, and we spent a month planning the trip. The night before the screening, we were back at our hotel, and he confessed he was madly in love with me, like it was something he'd been carrying for a while. I think he thought the trip was the right time, that we'd be out of town, a little removed, and staying in a nice hotel. It was a romantic setting, I guess. I told him I didn't feel the same way, and he took it well, like too well. He never brought it up again. We both acted normally the next day, but it was never really normal after that, and things got awkward. We drifted apart. Looking back, I don't know why I was so quick to shut the idea down. There are plenty of pets on TV and in movies, but honestly, none of them really stand out to me. I didn't dress up as Snoopy for Halloween or anything like that. There aren't any notable pets in my favorite shows. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I did name my dog Spock. I guess there is that connection between pets and TV. I got him right around the time I started having those dreams, too, but I don't see how that could have any connection. I mean, he doesn't remind me of Santa Claus or a bear. I'm definitely not afraid of him. He's just a tiny little chihuahua. He couldn't hurt me if he tried, which he never would. Oh, there are so many cool mythical creatures on TV and movies. I could go on forever. Movies like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter had a ton. Movies like Clash of the Titans showcased classical creatures from Greek mythology. And I watch a lot of TV shows with mythical creatures too, like Game of Thrones. I love any TV show about the supernatural. Honestly, I can't even think of any specific creatures that stand out above the rest. There's just too many to choose from. It'd be impossible to pick a favorite. After I lost my mom and Tommy, I just couldn't deal with death on TV anymore. It's everywhere. I even had to stop watching Star Trek for a while, and that used to be my favorite show. I never noticed it before that, but someone dies in more than 3/4 of the episodes of that show. I know it's a running joke that red shirts drop like flies, but back then, even seeing them get killed hurt somehow. Then again, Star Trek was something I always watched with Tommy, so maybe that's what really made it hard. New Orleans is a big player in TV shows and movies. Interview with the Vampire is one of the most famous examples. The city's architecture and eerie vibe, they just really fit the whole vampire thing perfectly. The movie shows off the dark Gothic side of New Orleans with its shadowy streets and historic buildings. It makes it the perfect backdrop for a story about immortal beings. And there's Angel Heart, which dives into darker, more mysterious aspects of the city. Let's be honest, I just love any movie with Robert De Niro. The film's atmosphere is just, I don't know, it's just thick with something sinister lurking just out of sight. And New Orleans just adds that extra layer of mystique and tension. It's just all about the mood, and New Orleans has plenty of that to go around. The eerie vibe from these movies, yeah, I don't know. It's always just a little bit present in the city. I love those home renovation shows. I don't even know why. Every couple on there is looking for a starter home with 6 bedrooms and a guest wing, and somehow their budget is $2 million, even though one of them makes birdhouses for a living and the other runs a blog about soup. And I'm just sitting there eating cereal in sweatpants, watching them argue about a backsplash like it matters. And they always walk into these perfectly normal homes, and the first thing out of their mouth is, "Oh, this paint color is awful." Like they've never heard of a roller and a gallon of eggshell white. It's all just nonsense. But I still watch it. It's comforting, I guess. Just 30 minutes of people pretending the biggest problem in their lives is that their sink isn't farmhouse style. The best TV shows and movies are all comic book stuff anymore. It's been that way for years, long before the MCU. Superhero movies have always been huge. Like Superman, Batman, X-Men. Yeah, the MCU did not start the trend. It's just the latest evolution of it. Comic book adaptations make for really good TV shows, too. The CW has been my favorite channel since Smallville. They really know how to bring those stories to life on the small screen. Oh. Oh, wait, they don't do that anymore. Okay, if you say gaming and movies, I can't not think about Knights of the Old Republic. It is easily easily my favorite game of all time. I have solved it more times than I can possibly count. The party members in that were just so well written and fleshed out. I still remember every one of them like they were real people, or, droids or Wookiees. That game was amazing. I'm a big fan of Star Wars games in general. Like, there's a ton of good ones. Like, Rogue Squadron 3 was another one of my favorites. I could just go on about Star Wars games all day. Sophia was a total film buff, especially when it came to movies from the 70s and 80s. She always said that was the golden age of cinema. Because of her, I'm pretty familiar with films from that time. Oh, we watched a ton of them together in our dorm room. Every time she found out about a critically acclaimed movie from that period I hadn't seen, she'd make sure we watched it together. Now it almost feels like I minored in film studies in college thanks to her. Oh, Scott is a huge Trekkie and seriously into Star Wars too, and a big fan of superhero movies. We actually met while waiting in line to see Ready Player One. We'd worked together before, and I'd seen him around the office, but we never really talked until that day in line. It's kind of like our shared love for nerdy stuff finally, brought us together. I met Sarah while she was in line with Scott to see the same movie as me, and we instantly clicked. It turns out she's a total horror movie buff. She loves all that creepy, spooky stuff, which is so not my thing. But it's cool because she gets really into it. We've even had a few movie nights where she tried to get me into her favorite horror flicks, and they're usually not for me. I only like horror movies where there's a sci-fi element, like Aliens or Nightmare on Elm Street 3, where the kids had dream powers they could use to fight back against Freddy. Yeah. I got a dog about 8 months ago, and it really does make it a lot harder to travel. Owning a pet is like signing up for a lifetime of, oh, I guess we can't do that now. It's like someone would ask me, hey, do you want to go for a spontaneous weekend getaway? And I'm like, oh, I'd love to, but I have a furry little dictator at home who needs his special food at precisely 6:03 p.m. or he acts like he's auditioning for a role in The Exorcist. Back in the days of wooden sailing ships, people told stories about sirens, these mythical creatures that supposedly sat on rocks in the middle of the ocean, singing their little hearts out, luring sailors to their doom. I mean, what kind of travel nightmare is that? Imagine being on a nice little boat trip just trying to get from point A to point B, and suddenly you hear this irresistible music. Next thing you know, you're crashing into rocks because some half bird, half woman decided today's the day to ruin your life. It's like, what's their end game? Are they just bored? Do they wake up and think, hey, let's go mess with some sailors today? And these sailors, come on, guys. You've been warned. Every legend, every map probably had beware of sirens written all over it. But no, they hear a tune and they lose all sense of direction. So it's like they never heard music before. Honestly, if even half those myths had been true, it would have been a miracle for anyone to ever make it back at all. Between sirens, the krakens, all those other sea monsters, setting sail was basically signing up for a mythical creature encounter. Every culture seems to have a path to get to the afterlife. And the weird thing is how many of them come with rules. You can't just die. There has to be a proper burial, a prayer, a rite. If you skip a step, the soul doesn't finish the journey. It gets stuck. Yeah, I don't believe in any of that, but that idea scares me more than the idea of dying itself. not making it all the way, getting stuck somewhere in between. Well, lots of people visit New Orleans. It's a big tourist destination, especially during Mardi Gras. I mean, all that tourism makes it a fun place to live. You know, it's a constant buzz of events and activities, but it also makes traffic awful for a good part of the year. When I was young, I always said I wanted to live in an apartment instead of a house because I wanted to travel and have the ability to up and move anywhere I wanted, anytime I wanted. You know, just be a free spirit and all that. Fast forward to now, and yeah, I live in an apartment instead of a house, but not because I'm jet setting around the globe. No, it's because you can't buy a house anymore unless you win the lottery. Seriously, maybe they should start giving away houses as lottery prizes. Instead of billboards saying the Powerball is up to 200 million, they should just show pictures of a nice 2-bedroom, 2-bath single family in a remotely decent neighborhood. At least then the dream of home ownership might feel a little more attainable. I've always associated comic books with travel. When I was a kid, my dad would take me out to Allentown. It was about an hour from Scranton, and they had a comic shop that was bigger than our local ones and carried stuff you couldn't find easily. Even now, a lot of my travel ends up tied to comics. Conventions, signings, shops in other cities. I still think of comics as something connected to day trips and vacations. It's probably one of the reasons I like them so much. Travel and gaming are two big parts of my life that don't always mix well, but I found ways to make it work. Whenever I travel, especially for work, I bring along my portable gaming setup. It's my way of unwinding after a long day of conferences or meetings. One of the coolest things about all of the traveling I do for work is that I've had the opportunity to meet a few online friends in real life. I've made friends from all over through gaming, and sometimes I end up in their neck of the woods for a conference or, something. So we make plans to meet up. It's great. Oh, Sophia was extremely well traveled. She'd been to more countries than I'd been to states, which was impressive and, a little intimidating. She seemed to know a lot about everything. It was clear she had a lot of life experience. I went on a trip once with Scott to a Star Trek convention in Denver. His girlfriend Sarah isn't into Star Trek, so she didn't want to come. And it was not awkward at all. Scott and I are like siblings, and all three of us know it, so Sarah had no issue with us going alone. The only travel Sarah does that really affects me are our annual trips to Comic-Con. Other than that, she goes on work trips a few times a year since she's a museum curator. I don't know all the details, but I know some of the trips are for acquisitions and some for exhibitions. She told me once that she likes one and hates the other, but I can't actually remember which. Yeah, I'm definitely a little bit envious. Her trips take her all around the world, and I've never even left a country. If I could have any mythical creature as a pet, yeah, dragon would be at the top of my list. Imagine having a dragon. Not only could it fly you around, it would also be the ultimate protection. No one is messing with you if you got a dragon hanging around. Another cool one would be a phoenix. It's like having a built-in reset button for your pet. Every time it gets old or injured, it just bursts into flames and comes back good as new. Plus, they're pretty and would definitely be a good conversation starter. Unicorns would be pretty awesome as well. Not only are they, beautiful and magical, but they're also supposed to have healing powers. Plus, who wouldn't want to have a unicorn grazing in their yard? Ever since I got my dog, I've started worrying about what would happen to him if I died. I don't mean someday when I'm old. I mean, like, what if I got hit by a bus or something random? How long would he be stuck in the apartment before someone came looking? Would he panic? Would he try to eat the couch? Would he just wait by the door for me? It started bothering me so much that I made a deal with my friend. If anything ever happens to me, she's supposed to come by that same day and get him. I even gave her a key to my place just in case. New Orleans is a very pet-friendly city, which is great for someone like me who loves animals. There are tons of events and places where you can bring your pet. Oh, one of the coolest things is the pet parade. They're just like the regular parades, but for pets. You see everything from dogs in costumes to cats in little wagons. It's a blast. My Chihuahua Spock, and he just loves it here. There are plenty of parks and pet-friendly spots where we can hang out. It's just one of the many things that make New Orleans so great. For the first time in my adult life, I finally live in an apartment that allows pets. I moved in about 9 months ago and naturally got a dog immediately. He's a cute little Chihuahua named Spock. Having him around, it's just been great. He's this big ball of energy and sass. I always wanted a pet, and now I finally get to check that off my list of easily attainable life goals that I never got around to. Yeah, I love him. A few comic book characters have pets that join them in fighting crime, usually with the same powers as their owners. Superman has Krypto, the superpowered dog. Batman has Ace the Bat Hound. Supergirl has her super cat Streaky. Maybe I should try training my Chihuahua to help me fight crime. Nah, I don't think that'd work. But who knows, he might surprise me. Ah, my old Tamagotchi. Yeah, that little digital pet was my pride and joy back in the day. I got it as a birthday present in elementary school, and I took my responsibilities as its caretaker very seriously. I carried it with me everywhere, obsessively checking it during class, making sure it was fed, cleaned, and entertained. If you didn't take care of it, it would die, and I was determined to keep mine alive as long as possible. There were those moments of sheer panic when it would start beeping in the middle of a test, and I'd sneak a quick glance to see what it needed. The other kids probably thought I was cheating on my tests, but nope, just taking care of my little buddy. The worst was when I accidentally would leave it at home and spend the entire day worrying if it was still alive or not. Ugh. Tamagotchis were the ultimate lesson in responsibility for kids. You learn that if you didn't put in the effort, there were consequences. And let's be real, it was kind of traumatic when your Tamagotchi died. You have to start all over, and it felt like just a huge failure. No, Sophia didn't have any pets. Pets weren't allowed in our dorm, so that was a no-go. But she did have this cute little stuffed raccoon she kept on her desk. I liked it. Sophia was all no nonsense most of the time, and that raccoon was proof that she had a softer side. Scott doesn't have any pets, which is probably for the best because he and my dog Spock do not get along. The only people who ever come over to my apartment are Scott and Sarah. Spock loves Sarah, but he barks at Scott a lot. And I think it's like a territorial thing since they're both male. I don't know. It's kind of funny to watch, though, honestly. Sarah's only pet is this adorable little hamster. She's not one for big, high-maintenance pets, so a hamster fits her perfectly. She named it Hamlet, which is classic Sarah humor. Yeah, every time I see that tiny little fur ball running on its wheel, it just makes me so happy. It's just like Sarah to keep things simple and cute. I've always been kind of fascinated by how different cultures personify death. Not just as an ending, but an actual character. In Norse mythology, you've got Hela, who rules over the dead that didn't die in battle. She's half alive and half decaying, which is a little on the nose, but effective. The Greeks had Thanatos, the literal god of death, and then there's the Grim Reaper, cloak, scythe, whole vibe. I think we all picture that one, whether we mean to or not. It's interesting how many versions of death there are, and how often people give it a job or a purpose. Like, death doesn't just happen. It shows up, and it takes you. People in New Orleans treat death differently than anywhere else I've lived. It's not just something that happens, it's wrapped up in stories and superstitions. People talk about ghosts like they're neighbors. You see candles on porches, charms in doorways, little signs that someone believes there's more going on than just bad luck. Even the cemeteries feel strange. They're not peaceful or quiet, they're just present, like the air is heavier. I'm not saying I believe in any of it, but I do get why people do. When enough people tell you a house is haunted, part of you starts paying attention. Maybe not because you think it's true, but because you want to understand why they do. My apartment in New Orleans is great. It is in a much better area than my last place, and I finally have the space that feels like home. It's a decent size and it has all the amenities I need, and best of all, it's pet friendly. So I get to have my chihuahua with me. After my mom and brother died, the house felt different, like just off. Like the energy was weird. I didn't notice it right away, but over time I started picking up on things. The living room, where we used to all hang out, suddenly felt way too quiet. The rooms felt like exhibits. Since then, I've been in other houses where someone had died, and I've gotten that same feeling. I'm sure there's a rational explanation, like maybe people go overboard with air fresheners, or the furniture gets rearranged and your brain notices something's not quite right. Still, I've picked up on it a few times. Death in games usually isn't a big deal. You just respawn and keep going. But then you got hardcore modes where death is permanent. A lot of loop-based RPGs do that. People spend hundreds of hours building their characters, and then one mistake, it's all gone. I don't get the appeal. Yeah, most game deaths feel cheap anyway. You know, it's lag, bad AI, random luck. You know, it's just not fun. That's just stress and frustration waiting to happen. Not for me. There are a lot of versions of death in comic books. You've got Marvel's version, where Death is this mysterious woman that Thanos is obsessed with. Then there's the DC version, where Death is this goth girl who's surprisingly upbeat and comforting. And of course, you got your classic Grim Reaper types and a bunch of smaller titles. I mean, some are terrifying, some are kind, but they all show up eventually. The funny thing is that in comics, death never sticks anyway. Characters die all the time, but they always come back. Sometimes it's time travel, sometimes it's clones, sometimes it's just comic book logic. It gets to the point where a major character dies and you don't even react. It's just like, they're on vacation. Sophia and I both studied criminology, but the material never seemed to get to her. Everyone else had a phase where the case studies or autopsy photos started to feel heavy. Not Sophia. It was like she already had her own way of processing it. She just didn't flinch, never needed a break. It wasn't coldness exactly, more like detachment, like she was just naturally wired for it. Scott deals with death constantly. I think him being a detective kind of rewired his brain for it. He's not numb to it, no, not exactly, but he cushions it by making terrible dad jokes. I think it's his coping strategy, but it seems to work for him. Sarah just got promoted because her boss died. She used to be a curator. Now she's a senior curator. I don't know what the difference is. She says it means more money and a better parking spot. She didn't seem upset or anything. Maybe she didn't know him that well, or maybe she just didn't like him. When I was little, after my mom passed away, I was convinced our house was haunted by her ghost. I especially felt her presence in my parents' bedroom. It was like the air in there was different somehow. I used to sneak in there when no one else was around and talk to her. I'd sit on the edge of the bed and tell her about my day as if she was still there listening. It was my way of coping with her loss, I guess. I've got a small collection of comic books, but they don't have a dedicated display case or anything fancy like that. I just keep them in 2 plastic bins. I was never one of those people who kept their comics in plastic sleeves or pristine condition. I read them so much that they get dog-eared and, I don't know, worn out. I'm just not fussy about stuff like that. I always pictured my apartment being set up for company, with a cozy living room, perfect for entertaining guests. But now that I'm an adult, I realize I rarely have people over, so it's set up for gaming instead. It's kind of the same thing, though, because gaming is how I talk to all my friends. Having Spock, my little chihuahua, around is a bonus. He'll curl up next to me like he's my tiny gamey buddy. Sophia and I shared a pretty standard dorm room with 2 beds, 2 desks, a couple of closets. She was really good at keeping things organized, which was great. All things considered, she was a pretty great roommate. I knew a few people who weren't so lucky with who they got paired with. She had a couple of movie posters that she put up on her side of the room. Yeah. Neither of us went crazy with decorations, but she had a great eye for making the room feel homey without overdoing it. Yeah, it was a small space, but we made it work. I wonder if parents who live in apartments still tell their kids the same stories about Santa Claus. Like, really, just think about it. Santa visiting apartments? That just seems weird. I mean, we all grew up with a classic image of Santa, right? Fat guy in a red suit, flying around in a sleigh, landing on rooftops, squeezing down chimneys. But what about the kids in apartments, huh? Are we supposed to believe that Santa parks his sleigh on the roof of a 20-story building, then shimmies down the fire escape? It's like, hold on, Rudolph, I've got to rappel down this brick wall real quick. And what about the logistics of this? No chimney in an apartment, huh? Does Santa just pick the lock and let himself in? Oh, don't worry, Timmy. Santa's got a master key for every building in the city. Yeah, that's not creepy at all. I live in an apartment complex in New Orleans, and I've definitely never seen a bear anywhere near my apartment. In fact, I've never seen a bear around any place I've ever lived. My dad once thought he saw a bear in our yard when I was a kid, but it just turned out to be a big dog. So, yeah, I'm struggling to make a solid connection on this one. Yeah, a few years ago, my dad sold our childhood home and moved into a senior citizens complex. It's not a nursing home, just an apartment complex for people over 55. He doesn't need a caretaker or anything. He just didn't want the hassle of taking care of a big house and a yard anymore. The decision, yeah, it made sense, but it was still strange to know that some strangers are living in the house I grew up in. Still, it was just one of those practical changes that needed to happen. People in my building love to tell stories about how it's haunted. Living in an apartment building in New Orleans, you get used to this kind of thing. It's like a local pastime. Tales of ghosts and voodoo and magic. And they're part of the culture of the city. According to the stories, our building has its share of restless spirits. Some say they've seen shadowy figures in the hallways or heard mysterious footsteps at night. There's even a rumor about a ghostly old lady who wanders the building searching for something she lost. Ooh. Yeah, I'm much more rational. My biggest fears related to my apartment are hurricanes and mold. My childhood house? Oh, it was a cute little ranch house. One floor, big carport that could fit 2 cars, and a yard that felt like it could go on forever. The house itself was kind of small, but the property was massive. We even had a swimming pool. I think it was built in the 1920s, but honestly, most houses in that area are pretty old. I mean, when a city's population is shrinking, there's not exactly a rush to build new houses, right? The most impressive thing about that house, my dad's mortgage payment was $173 a month. He told me that, and I was actually mad at him. Like, seriously, that's not even enough for a used car payment these days. You mean like a Barbie dream house? No, I never had one. But back in college, studying criminology, we played with model houses all the time. It was part of our training exercises. I actually had to use one now that I'm coroner. Okay, I was working on this Ravenwood case, right? Historian guy, dead in his house, walls covered in what looked like protection spells straight out of local folklore. He died from blunt force trauma, and his Ring camera caught just one visitor that whole day. Classic case of murder, or manslaughter at least. But hold on, here's the kicker. The defendant claims he and the victim were attacked by the Rougarou. That's this mythical creature from local Louisiana folklore. He even described it to a sketch artist after he was arrested. He stuck to that story in court, so they called me in to testify. So there I am, lugging this miniature house into court, having to stand there and show a bunch of supposedly sane adults that were dealing with a mundane human altercation, not some monster mash. Just another day at the office for me, using dollhouse furniture to debunk the existence of mythical creatures in a full courtroom. The biggest way being a coroner affects my home life? Well, I can finally afford a nice apartment. I've lived in my share of comically bad places, but now I have a spot that actually feels like home. No roommates. Well, unless you count my chihuahua, Spock. Scott lives alone in a pretty standard bachelor pad with almost nothing in it. I mean, seriously, his place is so bare bones that when I asked him why he never bought a kitchen table, he just shrugged and said he never thought of it. Sarah and Scott are planning on moving in together soon. They both have small apartments, so they're on the hunt for a bigger place. On the bright side, they won't have to argue over whose furniture to bring over because Scott basically doesn't have any. Sarah's got a pretty sweet apartment for someone living alone. I don't know what a museum curator does, but it must pay pretty well. She and Scott are planning to move in together when their leases are up, and they're looking for a bigger place. Honestly, her apartment seems fine for two people, but with two incomes, I guess they can afford something even nicer, so why not? They're even thinking about getting a 2-bedroom in my building, if one's available when they're ready to move. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, they're my best friends, and I never feel like a third wheel when we hang out. But if they're just down the hall, I might see them too much. I mean, we already spend Thanksgiving and Christmas together. It feels like I've adopted siblings without even trying. Being a coroner definitely influences my gaming habits. After spending all day with heavy stuff at work, I lean toward games that are more relaxing and low stress. I used to be all about like intense shooters and horror games, but now, I prefer something like Stardew Valley, where I can farm, fish, build a cozy little village. It's a nice escape from the reality of my job. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still play plenty of shooters and other games. I don't have much choice. I hang out with my friends online all the time, so I end up playing whatever the latest game we're all on is. It was Among Us for a while, which was a nice change of pace. Now we've moved on to Fortnite. I don't play that like a shooter, though. We play mostly solo, battle royale, and my usual strategy is to hide in dumpsters until there's only me and one other person left, and then try to run them over with a car. You'd be surprised how often I win doing that. Sarah is, hands down, the best gamer I know. We try out all sorts of online games, and somehow she's always amazing as every one. She is really into MMOs and anything strategic. Anytime we're in a team-based game, she's our default leader, especially MOBAs. It's almost annoying how she's so good at everything. Scott's a big online gamer. He is really into World of Warcraft, but he'll play pretty much anything. The thing is that he's honestly not that good at any of the games we play, but no one has the heart to tell him. I don't even think he realizes it. No, Sophia didn't play video games, which was the only downside of having her as a roommate. I tried to get her into playing some local multiplayer games, but she just wasn't into it. She did manage to convince me to go play laser tag with her once, thinking I'd love it since I'm a gamer. I thought it sounded fun, but I ended up having a panic attack during the game. I've only had a panic attack a few times in my life, and I'm not even sure what causes them. They've been so rare that I never got around to looking into why I had them. I've played a bunch of comic book-based games over the years. Some are amazing, like the Arkham series. Others, they feel like they were rushed out just to cash in on a movie release. Still, there's something cool about stepping into the shoes of your favorite heroes, even if the gameplay is pretty mid. All right, so New Orleans and gaming. Let's talk about gambling. This city's got Harris Casino right downtown, and it is always packed. You walk in there, and it's just a madhouse. Everyone is convinced that they're going to hit the jackpot. But most of them just ended up losing their shirts. And it's not just the casinos. Even the bars and the clubs have gaming machines. You can't go anywhere without someone trying to just throw their money away. But hey, that's New Orleans for you. There's always something going on. The whole city's got this buzz, and the gambling scene is a big part of it. I don't know, it's part of the charm, or insanity, depending on the way you look at it. Mythical creatures and gaming go hand in hand. Anytime there is a game with mythical creatures, I'm all in. Whether it's dragons, elves, fantasy beasts, I'm there for it. I never play a game as a human if there's a better option. I mean, why be a regular person when you can be an elf with magical powers? Duh. Most areas of the country have their urban legends and folklore, but in New Orleans, people take it much more seriously. Even the folks who don't believe in all that stuff get into it. It's like they're fans of the lore, just like some people are fans of comic books. They may not believe in the Rougarou or voodoo, but they'll still talk about it with a kind of reverence. It's woven into the fabric of the city. You can't escape it, and honestly, it makes living here that much more interesting. Ooh, comic books and mythical creatures go hand in hand. I mean, seriously, every mythical creature you've ever heard of has shown up in a comic book at some point. From dragons to griffins to more obscure ones like the chupacabra or wendigo. They have all made an appearance. Yeah, I don't think I can name a single one that hasn't been in a comic book. Sophia never believed in mythical creatures. She always said ghosts and vampires are made up, but there really are plenty of scary monsters in the world. They just all happen to be human. Scott doesn't believe in any kind of fantasy creatures. He's never really mentioned any. He's never really cosplayed as anything mythical, only human characters. He usually picks human characters in video games too, except for World of Warcraft. In that, he plays an elf druid. His druid character does turn into a bear for combat, so there's another bear connection. But I am positive I'm not dreaming about Scott's druid character in bear form. The bear in my dream is rustling around making noise. Druids don't do that. Plus, his bear is huge. The bear in my dream is really small. Oh, right. I remember a little more. My bear is definitely small. Santa is looking down towards it when he gets scared, not up. And I don't really remember what it looks like, but at the moment I see it, I just get hit with this overwhelming terror and the dream ends. Yeah, I just wake up with my heart racing.